Greetings, I'm Tim, welcome to our channel, and thank you for logging on. As we continue our journey through the FP Journe catalog, today we discuss the FP Journe Chronomètre Optimum. Shown at 40mm and available as a 42, the watch represents the most accurate mechanical timepiece that FP Journe can create using current technology. Not just a masterclass in chronometric refinements, it is also an homage to the innovations of the likes of Breguet, Robin, and others who advanced the cause of chronometry during the classical era of watchmaking in the 18th century. The timepiece here, easy to wear on a broad range of wrists, in 40 or 42mm size, superb in terms of ergonomics. Fit and feel always come first, regardless of watchmaking refinements, and you can see on my 16cm circumference wrist, the watch fits easily. Slim in profile, it is 9.7mm thick with a generously domed bezel that does allow it to slide underneath the cuff. Nicely constrained at 48mm across the wrist, it is an easy timepiece to wear on wrists as small as 14cm in circumference. The strap, richly appointed, large rectangular scale alligator leather, monotone stitch, folded edges, curved spring bars to close the gap with the flank of the case for a highly integrated look. The timepiece also features alligator leather on both sides of the strap for superior durability and long wearing value. Pull tab spring bars can be released using only a fingernail, obviating the need for any kind of tool and the concomitant risk to the finish in order to remove the straps. You can do it by hand. A platinum pin buckle to match a platinum watch. Matching materials to clasps and buckles is FP Journe's practice, and you will note that the bridge rides above the twin stanchions so that the strap will sit low on the wrist rather than stacking up once sized and buckled. It simply slides between the stanchions of the buckle. Moving back to the case, it has simple but strong lines. Platinum, all in high polish, will move a little bit closer and improve our lighting to appreciate the overlap of the bezel flank as well as the case back over the mid case. A strong horizontal sweep from lug tip to lug tip. The compound curvature of the lugs is both beautiful and practical, as it allows the lugs to exit 90 degrees from the horizontal and turn straight around the tight curve of a smaller wrist. The dial is emblematic of FP Journe's styling values as a brand and the man's preferences as a watchmaker. FP Journe has said he designs the dial of a watch prior to any of the actual engineering, because if the watch doesn't look appealing, what's the point? You can also see an homage to the original Tourbillon Remontoir, FP Journe's first watch built under his own name starting in 1999. The open half balance for the Remontoir d'Égalité, a characteristic of that watch and present on this one. You can see a power reserve scale. There is a 70-hour power reserve, plus or minus 2 hours for this timepiece, and it is able to maintain constant amplitude thanks to the various refinements we shall discuss shortly for 45 hours of its 70-hour power reserve. You will note that the Remontoir system, as well as the small seconds, both in a sweep seconds mode, and this is what happens when the watch passes below a certain threshold of mainspring barrel reserve. Rather than stopping, the constant force device is disengaged to keep the watch running for approximately 12 to 16 additional hours. However, when you wind the watch past a certain threshold, the Remontoir d'Égalité is sufficiently powered by the twin mainspring barrels operating in parallel that it can resume its quantized metering of power in 1 second bursts to the escapement. And now if we turn the watch over and look at the subsidiary deadbeat seconds display, you can see that the Remontoir's 1 second quantized bursts, also translated into a deadbeat second, give this watch 2 heartbeats, one of which is 3 hertz or 6 beats per second, and one is a single hertz or 1 beat per second. Now let's return to the dial for a moment. You can see characteristic of FP Journe watches, the presence of bolts on the dial side since 1999, a styling signature. Differential coloration, texture, and coating for the displays of hours, minutes, and seconds, as well as the outer dial. You will note a few flourishes of color as the hands themselves are heat blued, and there is a small shock of red in the power reserve scale. Radially arrayed minutes, radially arrayed hours, and small railroad for the loop-style counterweighted sub-seconds, and of course the fully black-polished half-bridge for the open Remontoir. Bezel bolts fixing a bezel at center. The dial has both changes of texture, material, coloration, and depth. Turning it all over, it's important to note that everything promised on the dial, invented and made by FP Journe, as well as a Remontoir d'Égalité and a direct impulse dual escapement, present and correct. Now we discuss FP Journe's mechanical masterpiece. while perhaps more complicated watches such as the repeater and the sonnerie, and more visually spectacular watches such as the tourbillon have been created, this timepiece represents the most accurate watch that FP Journe can design using a mechanical escapement and today's technology, adjusted in an extraordinary and chronometer beating 6 positions, as a COSC chronometer would be 5. This is adjusted in 6 positions. Let's trace its various refinements. The twin mainspring barrels in parallel, not so much to give an extraordinary power reserve, although they do offer that at 70 hours, but to ensure a very even torque release from maximum wind to minimum wind. Also, the remontoir d'égalité, a titanium spring that meters 1 second's worth of energy to the powertrain, thus always delivering the same amount of force and torque to the balance regardless of mainspring wind, right down to the point that it reverts to sweep seconds mode. It offers constant amplitude for 45 hours, and thus there's never a loss of amplitude and a slowing of timing. Now there's more going on. In addition to 6-position adjustment, twin mainspring barrels in parallel, and the remontoir d'égalité, a Phillips overcoil hairspring, a Phillips terminal curve, is used to ensure concentric breathing of the hairspring in any orientation with respect to gravity. Much like a Breguet overcoil, it ensures that the hairspring, which in flat configuration would not have a perfectly centered center of gravity, instead, with overcoil architecture, has a more centered mass and allows minimal variation in timing regardless of position on the wrist. The timepiece is also beautifully executed. As you can see, the caliber, and it is a manufacturer caliber known as 1510, 15 French lean, 10 being the year 2010 that production started, nicely laid out with a clear demarcation of functional elements, that is the metering of the remontoir and the escapement, as well as the beating balance, and the barrels on an opposite side with a half bridge. The escapement itself is worthy of note. If you were to look at its superbly detailed double direct impulse titanium escape wheels, you would see that they are not lubricated, so aging of lubricants has no effect on the chronometric precision of this watch over the years. And not only does the double impulse architecture pay homage to the escapements of Breguet, Robin, as well as the chronometer or detent escapement of the 18th century, but it realizes an alternative escapement and double direct impulse technology without lubrication and with the ability to self-start, as those prior escapements were not suitable for wristwatches. FP Journe takes the best ideas from those traditions and implements them in an unlubricated titanium double direct impulse configuration for a wristwatch. Linear Côte de Genève across the bridges, mirrored anglage or chamfering on the edge of every bridge, as well as the jewel and screw countersinks. You will note screw heads black polished with chamfered slots, and an engine turning across the base plate. You can see there is that characteristic overlapping perlage pattern. You can see this Chronomètre Optimum and learn more, along with the entire collection of FP Journe timepieces, on our website, govbergwatches.com.